pretty excited about that. And I'm just grateful to Paul Stevens and Total 911 and all you guys for coming out and giving me the continued support. It is much appreciated. So let's move on and we'll answer some questions and talk Porsche and drink some water.
Absolutely, stay hydrated.
Yeah, stay hydrated and lubricated. So it's air and water cooled here. So I'm all about the variety.
So obviously the book tour has proved pretty successful then.
Well, it's got pictures in it, so you don't have to read the book. So I jokingly refer to it as, I don't really read that much, but the book does have pictures in it. So if you like pictures, the book might be good for you. But yeah, no joking aside, the book for me was something that came out of nowhere. It was purely organic, which most things in my life seem to happen organically. It wasn't planned, but seems to be doing pretty well. Apparently it made it to the top 10 on that Times bestseller list, so something must be happening there. But I think my story, if you read the book, it's not truly a Porsche story. It's a story we can all relate to. I guess it's a story about never giving up on your dreams, following your passion, staying motivated, and trying to make the most out of life. And I think we can all relate to that. I always say all true car guys, doesn't matter what you drive. I'm a driver. I like to experience different cars, but ultimately I'm a Porsche guy at heart. And I think we're all here because we're car guys. Doesn't matter whether you came in an Audi, a hot rod, a Subaru, or Porsche, whether it's air and water cooled, or those transaxle cars with the motor in the front, I'm down with those too. Those mid-engine cars, Caymans, Boxsters, I'm down with those as well. So it's good to be here, and if you got any questions, shout them out, or you keep rolling with yours.
Well, why not? We take it to the floor. Is there any questions that anyone particularly wants to ask? I think someone sheepishly puts out.
Yeah, don't be shy,
then there's a flood all of a sudden, so go for it.
So the Outlaw scene for air-cooled has got to be over for young people. Going forward, when do you think they're going to start getting up the 996s and 997s?
I think that's already happened. I think 996 is best bang for the buck today. You guys know you're getting those cars for under 20 grand. I think they're relatively straightforward. But you're right, the air-cooled market has kind of gone crazy. For me, I was fortunate enough to get in them when they weren't stupid prices, when things were $10, not $100. So it is difficult now to get into air-cooled. But I still think bargains are out there in the air-cooled world if you're happy to hunt around and get something that's not perfect. For me, I've never strived for perfect cars. When people want to show me cars with no miles on it, I don't really have interest. But show me a car with a lot of miles on it, that's stories. And back to the people, without the people, there are no stories in the car. So I think best bang for the buck are former air-cooled track day cars where they're already sort of lowered in suspension and modified. Maybe someone's moving up a class. So that's generally when I'm looking for stuff. I generally look in that category if it's air-cooled. But truth be told, I'm not really chasing air-cooled cars anymore. My bigger picture is one of everything Porsche's ever made in a sports car. So front engine, mid-engine, rear engine, air and water. So joked about the 924s, but I own them. I own the 928. I've got a 944 on the list, 968. Because to me, it's all about variety when it comes to Porsche. So even though I've owned a lot of air-cooled cars and not many water-cooled 911s, to me it's still, like one of my favorite cars, for example, is my 04 GT3 996. To me, that's just as intoxicating as an early air-cooled car. It just makes a slightly different sound, but handles great, stops great, and goes fast. So I don't necessarily get hung up on 911 has to be air-cooled. So,
what do you think about that whole reverse 996, 997 from a specialist point of view?
They're a great car, aren't they? And they're very affordable. That's the point. I mean, and you said it, air-cooled stuff's just gone whoosh, out of reach, really. And you've got a 996. I mean, it's a brilliant car, isn't it, really?
Fantastic value for money.
And 20 grand's going to buy you a great one, really, isn't it? Still. Which, in an air-cooled car, it won't even buy you a pile of scrap.
I think really. Water-cooled stuff tends to be used more daily. So just by that fact alone, they've got value because people are using them more. With an air-cooled car, obviously, it is more difficult to use it on a daily basis. And with the price that rockets up, I always say to people, the point of these cars is to drive them. If it's once every Sunday, or one Sunday a month for an 80 grand car, that's got to be a hell of a Sunday afternoon in comparison to a water-cooled car that's 20 grand you can use every day.
And like you were saying with the GT3s, I mean, if you want a 73 RS or something, that's expensive now. But a GT3, it's
You like driving RS?
Yeah. I mean, an RS is obviously more money, but the GT3 Club Sport, great car, really.
What do you guys think of Caymans now? You're a fan.
Awesome. Cayman GT4, awesome. I've been driving the Sharkworks one. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Sharkworks. Those are those English guys out in San Jose that like to make things sound louder and go faster. So Those guys re-geared the GT4, shortened 3rd through 6th. Now they're working on a 4.1 motor for that, which will just be, well, it'll be a 911 killer really. But GT4, I'm a big fan. I borrowed their car for probably 3 months. So I'm fortunate.
A little road test.
Yeah, a little road test. Yeah, those guys are generous. That's what I call OPP, other people's Porsche. So I'm kind of lucky in that sense that I get to borrow their
Paul
cars.
gave you a car for 3 months.
Yeah, 3 months. I put 2,000 miles on it. I had the GT2 for a few months. And then the best car those guys ever built, the GT3 4.1.
Gosh, I think it's there.
Yeah, there it is.
We're out.
Boom, there it is.
Well,
There we go.
Yeah, what about you, Paul? What do you think for
I've
GT4s?
it would be great, but also the Cayman R. We were talking about it with somebody tonight.
Yeah, that's a cool car.
That's quite undervalued, I think, at the moment for what it is.
I would agree.
You know, when you think how much a GT4 is, the
Right.
Cayman R is still a great car. And we did something called a club swap, and we do that on an air-cooled car. We did it on a Cayman 45 years ago. It was a lightweight Cayman, and it was pretty good, you know. Strip it out and get
Less is more.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we've been talking about all day.
Any other questions?
Come on, I know you guys have got some questions. There we go. Denim shirt.
I always said before that you're a car guy as well. We're all there because we like Porsche as well. But are there any other marks that you like? Like, for example, old TBR, old Lotus as well. Is there anything that if you browse in the classifieds or anything?
Did you turn up in the Lotus?
No,
This
For sale sign in the window.
No. Who turned up in the Lotus? Raise your hand.
He's gone.
Very tasteful guy. No, I mean, to answer your question.
yeah.
At one time, I had all these cars at one time. 65 Mustang GT 350R fastback. That was modified with a 351 Cleveland, Richmond 5-speed, Detroit locker. Then I had a Series 1 67 E-Type Jag. I owned 269 Dodge Super Bs. So if there's any Mopar guys in here, it's Mopar or no car, unless it's a Porsche. I also owned a 73 Lotus Europa. And I also owned, believe it or not, a 79 308 GTB Ferrari and half a dozen Porsches all at the same time. This was probably 20 years ago. And each one of those cars was great at one thing. Like the Mustang was kind of fast but didn't really stop. 67 E-Type Jag was a great touring car but didn't really handle great. 69 Super B was great in a straight line. You could race anything. That was a lot of fun. You get 4 people in it and go race Vipers and Corvettes and whatever you wanted. 73 Lotus Europa was nimble but underpowered. Ferrari wasn't much fun compared to the 911. So little by little I got rid of all those cars because what I realized is they kind of excelled at one, maybe 2 things, whereas the 911 was just kind of like the everyday practical supercar that excelled at almost everything. You know, you could drive it to the track, race it, drive it back. You can't really say that for the others to a certain degree. So I'm a fan of all things. I'm lucky enough, like I say, to drive OPP, but also drive OPC, which is other people's cars. Perhaps the most intoxicating driving other people's cars has to be in Miami 3 months ago in an F40 on Key Biscayne Bridge. I mean, that to me is one of my top 5 drives, and I've driven some pretty exotic stuff that didn't leave me excited, like a Pagani Huayra. You'd think that car's exciting, but wasn't really that exciting to me. But F40 Ferrari, it's like up there with Carrera GT, just in a real buzzy, stripped out, intoxicating. It's like Ferrari's 911R on steroids, turbocharged 30 years ago. That's kind of how I sum up the 308, I mean the F40. But in a sense, having owned the 308 GTB, it wasn't really dramatically different to that car. Similar size, obviously more powerful, sounds like being in a bus saw. So hopefully that answers your question on non-Porsches. Go on, forward, someone's got some questions.
What's your relationship like with the LA police? What's he whizzing around in your video? Sorry, Jesus.
I've got a few tickets. I mean, I didn't tell you the F40 story. I don't know if you guys, I've told this story recently, but the ending to the F40 story was I guess I'd gone over Key Biscayne Bridge a few too many times at 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning and ended up getting pulled over by the Miami Police Department. And the car was a dealer car. A friend of mine or a friend of a friend had loaned us the car. It was a Speed Hunters thing. Larry from Speed Hunters, my buddy, says, hey, we're in Miami for Race of Champions, and he goes, you think we can shoot some car tomorrow? And this is what's great about car people. This is Saturday night, around this time. I made one phone call to a buddy and said, hey, you know that buddy of yours, one that said I could drive his F40? Do you think he'll let me? It was one phone call, and next morning, 6 a.m., we had the F40. So that's a great thing about car people in general, and I guess how I'm fortunate and lucky to have these opportunities to drive other people's exotic cars. And this guy was great, just handed us the keys to this F40, and there we went. So we ended up getting pulled over by this Miami Police Department guy, and The car was on dealer plates, no paperwork, no insurance, and we're on a California driving. So it wasn't looking too good for maybe 20 minutes, but in the end, the car didn't get impounded, and I walked away, well, drove away with no speeding ticket. So sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. There's a Ferrari Miami Police Department F40 story. Questions? Keep them coming.
Are you a guest of Porsche at Le Mans?
I
No,
will be
that's
at
the
Le Mans.
story,
I've got a great story about Porsche at Le Mans. I'm actually, believe it or not a guest with Porsche at Le Mans. I'm going with Alpine. So I'll be there with the French team, believe it or not.
I was going to say, if you're camping, take some toilet paper.
Yeah, well, it's the first time I've ever gone to Le Mans. I'm not camping. It's the first event I'm actually not with Porsche at, which is kind of surprising to me. And apparently, Le Mans is the most difficult thing to get passes from Porsche. And I thought, how hard can this be? So Porsche Cars North America refers me to Porsche Cars France, who then refers me to Porsche Cars AG. And then I got referred back to Porsche Cars North America, who said, sorry, all those passes have gone. And then one phone call to a buddy who happened to win the LMP2 class last year for Alpine Renault. Said, yeah, sure, we got a pass for you. So it's kind of crazy, but back to the big picture of car guys are car guys. You know, unfortunately, I'm not there with Porsche, but I'll be doing old-timer GP with Porsche. I'll be going to Mexico City for the WEC race with Porsche. And I'm doing a rally in Austria with Porsche. So still doing a lot of events with Porsche, which is, for me, super fun. But yeah, looking forward to Le Mans. Never gone, so I need like the idiot's guide to Le Mans on, you know, what to do and where to go and how to get in and out. So I'll let you know next time how it goes for me. Hand up the back, or is that guy just taking a photo on the iPhone?
Should we all wait?
Yeah, let's wait. There we go.
Hi, Mum.
There we go. There we go.
What are the best roads you've driven so far, and what roads do you hope to drive in the future?
My out-and-out favourite road, Highway 2, Angeles Crest Highway in LA, starts 20 miles north of downtown, climbs to over 8,000 feet. So one of my most memorable drives there was in my 78 SC. It was May 15th, 2015, so a little over 2 years ago, and it rained that night before in LA. But you get up to 8,000 feet, I was in the snow, and it was less than 60 miles from downtown LA. So Angeles Crest Highway, world-class mountain road. Porsche does test drives on that. It, like I say, starts at probably 4,000 feet, or probably 3 and goes up to 8,000 feet. It's 75 miles long. So what I love about California, Southern California, and especially LA, is just the accessibility to world-class mountain roads, driving roads. There's a lot of loops out there, whether it's mountain, desert, or ocean. So what I really want to do is ship a car to Europe, probably 277, and do all the European roads that I've really not done. You know, I've driven a bit here, but all my drives here seem mildly frustrating. For example, I was driving in Paris recently over the weekend, frustrating. Porsche had loaned me a car a few years ago when I did Goodwood Revival with them, so I drove from Goodwood Revival on a Sunday up to Sheffield on the M1, frustrating. I think where I need to go is the Tarn Outlaw guys, Scotland, the 500-mile loop there. You know, the roads up in Scotland, I think, are where I need to go, but the real plan is ship 277 here, do some of the events here, and then drive to Le Mans. And then what I like about the idea of Europe is all these, you know, world-class events all close by, Nürburgring, Spa, Zandvoort, and then all the mountain passes. So that would be the next trip, actually having a car here and doing a road trip. Perhaps one of my best trips in Europe was driving with Porsche from Stuttgart down to the old-timer GP through the Black Forest and down by the river. Was a pretty great trip. But where I'm from, Sheffield, we've got this road called the Snake. It drops over to Glossop, and that's a pretty awesome road. But ironically, when I lived in Sheffield, that was 30 years ago, I didn't have a driver's license and didn't own a car, so I haven't really driven that road that much. But there's lots of great roads out there, but I think European road trip is next on the agenda.
Have you got any videos or maybe an Urban Outlaw 2 in the pipeline?
No, there's no Urban Outlaw 2. That was kind of like, you know, the stars aligned for that film, and without Tamir, the guy that put it together and essentially made me look good, because he took all my rambling on little bits and edited them down and made it look slick. Without him, and I have to give a big thanks to him, without him, I wouldn't be here. But as for the follow-up to that, it's funny, of all the videos that I've made after, which are mostly driving videos, and what I think people relate to about Urban Outlaw, and I think is happening with the Buck, is it's not just a car story, it's a journey, it's a life, it's an adventure. But the stars aligned for that happened organically, and I don't necessarily see an Urban Outlaw follow-up, but there's other potential things, TV and stuff like that. But for me, it's all about timing and has to feel right. I don't like forcing stuff to happen. It sort of feels right at the time, and I go with the gut feel and angle on things. That's generally how I navigate my way through life. is purely based on gut feelings, not so much. I always hate it when people give you that "where do you see yourself in 5 years" question. I'm like, I don't know. So no plans. But you
You
know.
mentioned the TV series in the book. Is that something that's going to come out, or the pilot you're doing?
Well, I think book's in the next chapter. You know, I'm turning 50 in 3 weeks, so you know what I mean. It's like the book was a real therapeutic thing, looking back on my life over the past 50 years and where I came from and where I'm going. As for TV show, if it's meant to be, it's going to happen, and it's not something I really need to do. If it's with a production team and a concept that sounds to make sense, I'm all about it. But if it's something that's forced, which a lot of this car TV show seems to be, that's not really what I do. It's not really what I'm about. So no TV show plans, and like I say, I'll just see what comes next.
What's your favourite car in the car park at the moment?
Well, it's a tough question. The Porsche. No, that C-type Jag replica out there. Have you guys seen that one? With a 4.2 Jag motor in it, C-type replica. Check that out. It's like blue with a round meatball on it. That's really a pretty cool car. That 968 Club Sport, that's pretty nice out there. Where's the 968 Club Sport, guys? He's still here? There you go, 968 Club Sport. What's that? Porsche's best handling car?
Absolutely.
There we go. I like that one. I like that one. No, it's hard to pick one. They're all pretty cool. Anyone else?
So if you were 21,
Yeah? Are you 21?
I'm 21, yeah.
Congratulations.
If you had the choice between the PCH or the Nürburgring, what would you do?
Well, PCH is one of those roads that if you drive it, it's actually pretty frustrating in a lot of places because it goes from LA to San, well, it goes a long way, but the part everyone does is LA to San Francisco, and sections of that are really irritating because they're either washed out or you're stuck behind a string of like 8 or 10 caravans, and they're all bumper to bumper, so maybe you can pass 1 or 2 of them, but there's nowhere to cut in. So PCH is a real scenic road, but it's not necessarily, I think, a great driving road if you do the whole thing. Nürburgring I've never driven, but I do have a great Nürburgring story. You got time for the Nürburgring story? Yeah. You guys want to hear it? All right, this one's, I'll try and condense it. Essentially, I'm at Oldtimer GP with Porsche 3 years ago, and everyone's coming up to me saying, have you driven the ring, have you driven the ring? I'm like, no, I haven't driven it yet. And after like 1,000 questions, it became slightly irritating. So finally I'm like, Porsche, can't I go drive the ring with someone? So they said, well, we don't know, we'll find out. And then Derek Bell happened to be there with Walter Roll. And Derek Bell, I know just a little bit. I know his son Justin as well. He goes, you know what, I'll drive you around there tomorrow morning. This is Saturday night. He goes, I'm driving back to England in his 924, because he likes to drive that to the Nürburgring and back. I'm sure you guys know that. So he says, I'll meet you at the F1 circuit at the Porsche Zentrum at 9 a.m. and we'll go drive the ring. I'm like, wow, the stars have aligned. I've gone from never driving the Nürburgring to I'm driving it for the first time with Derek Bell. You know, this story can't get any better, right? So Derek Bell picks me up at 9 a.m. and I get in the car and we drive over from the F1 circuit to the Nürburgring, which is not too far. And we get there and it turns out there's a Mercedes-Benz Classic Club on track. And they go, hey Bell, we'd love to have you on track, but we can't let you on until 10:30. And of course, I don't want to be that asshole that had to ask Derek Bell to wait an hour and a half to drive me around the Nürburgring. So I actually never did get to drive the track with Derek Bell, but at least he drove me to the Nürburgring. So that's my Nürburgring Derek Bell story. Another one of those great Porsche stories, really.
Any other questions?
Come on, you guys got some questions. What else you gonna do? Go kick Porsche tires?
What about 356 Outlaws, Mr. Emery over there?
I'm not cool enough for those yet, and I missed the boat on that. But yeah, Rod Emery, he's the 356 guru, for those of you that don't know. I mean, the great thing about Rod Emery is he's third generation. You know, his grandfather, Neil Emery, was building cars in the 50s and chopping cars and basically starting, you know, that whole SoCal chop scene back in the 50s in North Hollywood. And then Rod's father, Gary, obviously parts obsolete. So Rod's one of those guys that it's in his DNA, it's in his blood. He's extremely talented. He's the guy that I went to when I couldn't find anyone to do those steel stamped louvered fenders that I first did on my 67S about 5 years ago, and then he redid them on the 964. So mega talented guy, and he's like as cool as it gets when it comes to building the Outlaw 356, but ultimately he's just a great all-round, genuine, super supportive, cool guy. And so I really like Rod and what he does. Like I say, I've yet to own a 356, but pre-A bent window would kind of be where I'd want to be. But I've missed that boat because, as I said earlier, I was buying Porsches when they were $5 and $10, not, you know, where they are now. So, But I've been in some of his cars and they perform really, really great. One of the cool things, actually, 356, I did this little Paris Outlaw gathering 3 nights ago in Paris. And one of the coolest 356s had a 993 motor in it, 915 transmission, and was a real hot rod outlaw. Built by that company called Vintech. I don't know if you know those guys in Paris. Those are the guys that built that 550 concept car with the gold wing doors that I actually drove in on Monday. And it's all carbon fiber, that whole car, it's all carbon. So that company, they build prototypes for, I guess, Peugeot and Renault and show cars for like Paris Auto Show and Frankfurt Auto Show and stuff like that. So 356, big fan, never owned one, but lots of cool ones out there. Hope that answers the 356 question. Do like them. Don't be shy. Come on. Bit of advice.
What do you think to companies like Singer?
I've known Rob for probably 10, 12 years. Awesome guy, impeccable cars, like the full-on bespoke, tailor-made, 964. I think they set the bar really, really high. I think it's about as good as it gets. Ironically, I've never driven one, but I've been in one. So 2 thumbs up for what he did and what he's been able to achieve. They've got a waiting list of 18 months. It's pretty mind-boggling. But just shows, the cream rises to the top. And I think what Singer does is really inspiring and extremely well executed. So, big fan. Also, big fan of RWB, just in case anyone wants to ask that question, because I get asked that question quite a bit. What do you think of Singer, like him, and RWB? Also, big fan. I've met Nakai all over, met in Tokyo and London. Actually drove with the Idlers out in Tokyo. So, it's like I say, the Porsche pie is big enough where everyone has a slice of it. People like taking cars to golf clubs or to golf courses and having people with white gloves and Q-tips judge them. That's fine, that's not what I'm about. Some people like to modify, that's kind of where I'm at, but I think the pie's big enough that everyone can have a slice of it, and that's what's great about Porsche people. I don't think it's the same with Ferrari enthusiasts and other exotic car enthusiasts. And ultimately, Porsche guys like to drive the cars, and I think that's why we're all here. So,
I've got a question to follow on from that then. I hope you don't mind, Paul. Obviously, you drove the PS Club Sport today, and it will be in the magazine next issue, but...
What magazine's that, Lee?
Is that Total 911?
Let's hear for Total 911! That's another quid you owe me.
Yeah, exactly. How was it to drive?
Great car, super torquey motor. I mean, I would say that's a spectacular touring car. I felt comfortable in it straight away. Wasn't too stiff where you're bouncing around. Was compliant over those sort of, undulating roads. Turned in great, and execution and fit and finish really, really good. So I had a good time driving that car today. So thanks for the opportunity there. And looks awesome too.
Good stuff. Good stuff all round.
Come on, we need some more questions right here. Stripy shirt.
Stripy shirt.
Filming.
Filming.
What's your name?
Simon.
Simon, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. You? Why did you get out of the clothing business, and how many long sleeve t-shirts do you own?
Well, long sleeve thermals, I own about 6 in the same colour. So this is kind of like my, you think
like
of
Homer Simpson's wardrobe.
Yeah, it's kind of like Jay Leno, who's always in the denim, right, for continuity. So for me, I like long sleeve. I like to layer. I'm a layering guy. So I have a lot of thermals that all look the same. So it's not like I'm wearing the same one all the time, but I do rotate a little bit. But having said that, being on the road for 25 days, I'm getting a little stinky. My socks are crusty. And just in case anyone's got a washing machine close by, I've got it all in the car. I think your friend across the road that maybe the curry could do that for you, right?
Yeah.
But to answer your question about the clothing, just got to the point where we've done it for 20 years. In our 20s and 30s, highly motivated, designing what we like to wear. That was what I call the rock and roll years, when we'd go out a lot and ended up sort of outfitting a lot of bands, and it was fun times. But mid-40s, priorities had changed. We weren't going out quite as much, and just the desire to design clothing had worn off. At that point, we'd been in the film location business for probably a dozen years. It was somewhat lucrative, where it enabled us to back out of the clothing company. But the real key essentially was, we said, why are we doing something we don't like to do? Success for us was being able to do whatever we want. And remember, I left school when I was 15, went to America when I was 19, 30 years ago. So I became what I call an adaptive swimmer. I think there's people that are book smart, that, like my sister, she ended up with like a dozen O levels and A levels and a college degree. I left school with 2 O levels. And just sort of always found a way of doing things that I like to do, what I enjoyed doing. And I think that's a common bond of whether you're a hobbyist building something in your garage which becomes Nike, or you're building something in your garage which becomes Porsche, or whatever it is. Passion goes a long way. So the long answer to your question is, I lost passion for the clothing, no longer cared about it, and decided okay, we're going to close this thing down. We didn't sell it, but we just knew we weren't enjoying it anymore. We had the buffer of the film location business to sort of support us financially. But here's the big thing, we didn't know what was coming next, and the clothing company had got us to the point where we were able to buy the building and achieve a couple of goals that we'd set. So we closed that door, and we really did not know what was coming next creatively. The filming thing was financially good, but not really creative. Well, 6 months after we closed it down, we made the film of an Outlaw. 6 months after that, it came out. So the past 5 years of my life have been a lot different to the years before, only because I now have time to travel the world. And for me, just to clarify, I don't build custom cars like Paul. I'm not an independent performance shop. I'm not like Sharkworks tuning stuff. I'm just an enthusiast like you guys that happens to have a passion for Porsche and likes collecting them. And I've got a beard and long hair, which makes me stand out, I guess, in the Porsche world. So closed the clothing company down, and then Urban Outlaw rolled out. And the point to my rambling here is, if we were still doing the clothing, I wouldn't have time to travel the world and do things like this. So.
Are you like an accidental entrepreneur?
Yeah, I guess you could call that. I call myself an adaptive swimmer. So accidental entrepreneur would be, for me, going to America was the best thing I ever did, because it was sink or swim. It was like there was no safety net there. There was no one that was going to bail me out, and it wasn't always easy, and it took a long time to achieve these things. But the common thread that goes through all three, the clothing, the property that we developed into filming, and then the cars, they all had their own unique style and individual sort of connection, which was just my interpretation of my own style. It's like the cars I build, they're just slightly different, which maybe separates them or gives them a unique look. The clothing was the same way. And then we'd always sort of been ahead of the trend. When it was clothing, we were making stuff before people got into that style. The property we developed was in a neighborhood that was underdeveloped, and then sort of became like the next Shoreditch or Culver City or Venice. And the same with the Porsches. I was talking about acquiring these Porsches when they were $10 cars, and that was how I was able to get, 67 S's and lots of short wheelbase cars for not much money. And believe it or not, 5 years ago you could pick up early 3-liter turbos for not much money, because nobody really wanted them. So people say, oh, you got lucky. Well, I go, well, how do you get lucky 3 times? You get lucky by, I guess, you make your own luck. And I made mine, in a sense, by just following my gut feeling and doing what was right, and not really worrying about what other people thought. So I never ask questions on, what should I do with my car? Because you get a million different answers. It's like asking someone how you turn on your iPhone. You get 4 different answers, right? So I don't care about the correct shade of CAD plating and stuff like that. To me, it doesn't matter. It's just with the cars, enjoy them and drive them as much as you can. So hopefully that answers your question about the clothing.
Do you find it difficult to pick which one you're going out?
Depends where I'm going.
Is that kind of part of the fun, though? You stand there and you go, right?
Yeah, variety. Like if I want to step back 50 years, I'll go get in my Irish Green 66 911. If I know I'm going somewhere where it's slightly a spirited drive, chances are that's 277. I'm going somewhere where it's more of a cruise, maybe the turbo's a good car for that. So it's back to variety. No 2 cars drive the same, and for me, each one's got a unique experience. So depends where you're going and how fast I want to get there.
Yeah.
Really.
And they're all ready to go, yeah?
Pretty much they're all ready. They don't all drive, but most of them drive. I think for me, my drives, it's not so much about quantity, it's quality. I'm not necessarily driving hundreds of thousands of miles, but I'm also not sat in traffic, hypothetically going from downtown LA to Santa Monica, which is an 18-mile drive and can take an hour in rush hour. Like the other night, I'm in Paris, I get in an Uber, and we're going 6 kilometers and it took an hour. To me, that's not driving, it's commuting, there's no pleasure in that. So for me, I pick the time, generally early in the morning, tend to drive on my own, lone wolf style. That way I go at my own pace. So it just depends on where I'm going and how I want to get there and what the journey's going to be. It doesn't always have to be 9, 10, 10s, 80, 90 miles an hour in an old short wheelbase car on, tall tires rolling around. Feels like you're doing about 20, about 30 and something else. So it's variety, and hopefully that answers your question. That can't be it. There we go.
If you had to choose one car that slipped through your hands over the years, it's been the definitive car you...
Other than that 968 Club Sport?
There's a deal going on.
No, that's a car on my list. No, to answer your question, a car that slipped through my hands?
One car that defines the ultimate car for you that you've had. And
the ultimate car?
Yeah, the best one you've had that you can pick out.
That I still have?
What you've had over the years, throughout your experience.
277.
Yeah.
I mean, still have it. That's the car that developed, when I bought that up from on a swap meet in 1999, it was $7,500. It was the second Porsche I'd ever owned. Already had a 2.7 motor in it, CIS motor. Within the first 6 months, I'd built that out to look like an RS. Got real RS fenders on it, banged on the ducktail, the S bumper, and all of a sudden I got a car that looks like an RS. And then Took my spirited street driving to the track, defined my track day driving skills, and along the way the car got modified little by little during track days, and I guess the rest for me is history with that car. It's the car I'm most associated with, and it's the one I've owned the longest. It's not necessarily, by today's standards, anything special. It's an old Weltmeister sway bars, and it's gone through a couple of motors, but it's a car that's got all the character, all the memories, all the miles, and that's the one right there, 277. I mean, the sum of its parts, it's nothing special. It's a 71 911T. It didn't race anywhere special, even though I'd done 40, 50 track days a year for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, and done a lot of cool tracks like Laguna and stuff like that, but it's not like it ever went to Goodwood or Le Mans or Daytona or Sebring. But that's the car people most associate me with, I think, because of the videos, and I think people can relate to that car where you build it as you go along and it becomes your favorite car. Some you connect with more than others, and that's a car that's just defies the sum of its parts, essentially, and that's the car, 277.
Is that like 50% of your drives in that car then?
Yeah, I would say so, probably, yeah. I mean, I'm traveling so much now, I'm not really driving as much as I was, but to me this is, like I say, fun doing these events and going all over the world and going to places I always wanted to go to. Like, I've never gone to Le Mans, and I'm going tomorrow, so I'm kind of excited about that.
Just touched on the past and current past. What about what's next? Is there something in sight?
Well, I think I touched on it earlier. The new goal is one of everything Porsche's ever made in a sports car. So to run through transaxle cars, front engine. So I've got the 924, 928, 944 turbo. That guy's 968 Club Sport. I already got the 914. I'm borrowing the Sharpworks GT4, so I don't need to own that. And then with the 911, it's one of every model. So currently I need to get, and this is not in chronological order, but I'm up to 996. The latest car I finished building almost 2 years ago now really was the 964. Somehow I've managed to skip the 993. For some reason that's the one Porsche I'm not fully connected with in its stock form. To me it's a little soft, a little floaty, not quite sharp. Great touring car, but I don't feel it's a great canyon car. So that's a car I could buy, but I know I wouldn't really drive that much. And then 997 and 991. And I think probably the best bang for the buck today, I would say, other than 996, has to be 997 Gen 1. I mean, you can buy those cars for under 30 grand in the States. So I think that's like a killer buy. But I haven't managed to pull the trigger on that car either, so I'm not fully sure what's going on there. But so hopefully that answers your question. Anybody else?
You did some racing back in the day.
Yeah.
You could race in any event now, or would it be?
That's a great question. It's funny, I got a couple of opportunities. One's to go down to Adelaide this year to do something down there in Australia. And then Porsche Cars Latin America is taking me to Mexico City for the WEC race, and they want to ship 277 there. So I'm not saying I'm driving the WEC race, but 277 will probably be on track there. But I would say probably Goodwood Revival would be great. I think my ultimate dream would be to ship 277 here, do the Goodwood Festival of Speed and drive it up the hill, and then drive that car to Classic Le Mans, do that, and then, like I said earlier, Old Timer GP, Nürburgring. So that would be the car, and those would probably be the events. But Goodwood Festival of Speed, if anyone knows how I can get 277 to drive up the hill, let me know, I'm right here. Second question? First question. All right, Goodwood, there we go. There's the guy right there.
Would you consider Goodwood the Goodwood Revival meet on the Goodwood circuit?
Well, yeah, I think that would be the way to go. I mean, to me, Goodwood Revival, I was there with Porsche a couple of years ago, and I described that as like being in the twilight zone in the 50s at a racetrack, stepping back in time. So to me, it's funny, when I heard about Goodwood Revival and you got to dress up in the outfit, I'm like, I'm not one of those guys that does Halloween, so I'm like, this is going to suck. So I go as like 60s hippie Mick Fleetwood, and I'd like the blast. And it seems like the 20% of people that are not dressed up at Goodwood are the people that stand out. So to me, having been in America for 30 years, I kind of forget how great it is being back in England at these events, because Monterey Historics is a great event, but it's not like being in a pantomime like Goodwood is. I mean, it's like being in Dad's Army, right? That doesn't happen anywhere else. And I think that's a great thing back to car people, car culture people, and that's what's great about Goodwood. Anybody else? I know some.
Anymore.
I see you've been at the Tobacco Dock bike show.
Yeah.
Are you into wheels of this before?
My brother's a two-wheeler, and that's a great question. I kind of stumbled into that. I was staying in Shoreditch, and some guy was going down the road on a moped, and I guess he follows me on Instagram or something, too much time on his hands, and says, "Are you going to the bike show?" I go, "What bike show?" He goes, "Wapping at the tobacco shed. I hadn't heard about that, but I went there and it was funny. Even though I'm not a two-wheel guy, I don't ride. My brother does, but I have a lot of friends that ride. To me, there was so much inspiration at that bike show because a car is a big canvas. A bike is a small canvas. So for me, the inspiration was seeing combinations of color and materials, exotic materials, you know, wood seats, brass tanks, tons of interesting brass chrome, copper plating, different sort of combinations of textile, fabric, mesh, all integrated. Oh, for sure. I mean, it's all relatable.
That was sort of steampunk type stuff.
Yeah, I mean, cafe races, steampunk, old British bikes. I mean, I say inspiration's everywhere, so my eyes are always open. Yet again, I don't say, okay, Porsche built this 73 RS or whatever it is, so I have to replicate it down to the finish of the cat's plating. To me, if I can pull inspiration from whether it comes off a bike or not, it doesn't really matter. So there was tons of inspiration at that bike show in a spectacular place. I mean, so I'm always looking to be inspired. Doesn't matter where it comes from, whether it's, you know, airplanes, bikes, cars, tanks, trucks, old military stuff. I mean, inspiration's everywhere. You just gotta, I think, open your eyes and not be too worried about mixing it up. To me, I take what I call the glory eras of Porsche for me, mid-60s to mid-70s. It's everything from Vic Elford, Monte Carlo Rally to, you know, Le Mans, the R, the RS, the ST, the RSR, and I throw them in a blender, and then what comes out is what you guys have seen. So I like the inspiration on what's on two wheels, and it seems the bike world is super friendly, not mega judgmental, it's not super competitive, it doesn't seem, and a lot of inspiration.
The outlaw scene, is it in America where it is the biggest, or where is the second largest even?
I think it's all over. I mean, you go to Japan and see what those guys have done, not necessarily with Porsches, but, you know, with Skylines and stuff like that, and drifting. And car culture's a global thing, you know. Go down to Miami, it's a different culture. Go to Cuba, it's a different culture. So these, to me, are outlaw scenes. This term outlaw is kind of a vague thing, you know. Everyone's a hot rodder, right? I mean, outlaw, you Google it, it's something that's outside the realm of the law. Well, that's interpreted to anything, right? So back to the Porsche pie, there's people who like modified cars and there's people who like stock cars. I mean, for sure it's big in the States, but I'd probably say it's bigger in the States than it is here, but I think that might be changing.
Who's your all-time old school hero? Driving hero or whatever?
Probably Vic Elford. I got a great Vic Elford story if you guys want to hear the good Vic Elford story, quick Vic.
Yeah.
So I'm down in North Carolina doing this event with the Ingrams, and those are the guys that allow me to drive their R and all these exotic cars. And for those that don't know, these guys have got everything from a Gammon Coupe to a 918 and everything you'd ever want in between. So we'd rented a station, well, a VW sort of, you know, estate car, and they said, can you drive Vic down from Durham to Pinehurst, this concourse? And it's me, Karen, and Vic Elford. And the funny part of the story is, Vic Elford's in the back seat, and he's got like an early iPhone, like an iPhone 1 or something, and he's like giving his navigation. So I had this photo, and he's a funny guy. The caption was, Vic Elford, the world's greatest backseat driver, and he sort of appreciated that humor, because he's telling us, no, we're going the wrong way. And of course, he's giving us directions on this old obsolete phone, so. Vic Elford, I spent quite a bit of time with him, funny guy, so I often refer to Vic Elford when I talk about inspiration for Porsche, so probably Vic Elford. Cool dude.
Can you ever envisage a 991 album?
I think there's a few out there, right? I see two 911Rs. Those are 911 Outlaws, right? Yeah, I could see that. I mean, that'd be a fun project for sure. I don't own one yet, though. Yeah, it's on the list.
Shall we call it quits and then?
Well, unless you got another question.
Another chat.
This could be it. Final question.
Yeah, go on. Naturally aspirated or turbo?
Whoa, well,
I do like both for different reasons.
I do love to stay boosted. There's that guy that left earlier on with a 1,000 horsepower turbo that's done 217 miles an hour on the Autobahn, and he's going for 1,300 horsepower because 1,000 is obviously not enough. I mean, early turbos that I have, 3-litre cars, they're not quick by today's standards. They're challenging to drive because we've all heard about the boost. And to me, the challenge with the early turbos, and that's what I own, is gear ratio. You know, those early turbos, first is like 45 miles an hour, second seems to be like 85, 90. So they're not great in stock form canyon cars. The Shortworks 997 GT2 with 775 horsepower, complete opposite. It's almost like too much power to sort of roll into. You got to roll into that, otherwise you're just spinning wheels at silly speeds, you know, 120 miles an hour and stuff. So I love turbos, but they seem to be done too soon. By 7,000 RPM, most of them are done. So I go normally aspirated. Doesn't matter whether it's 2 litre or Sharpworks 4.1 GT3. Cars that rev, I like the range. So anything that revs above 8,000 RPM is great. So I think normally aspirated, more throttle response, that's where I'm at. But I do have a dose of turbo for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Magnus Walker.
Thank you.
Obviously, just to repeat again, Paul, thanks for having us. We really appreciate that.